So today, we're diving into some new research that's, well, it's pretty wild. It suggests that our sun has this incredible vulnerability we never really knew about. You know that steady, predictable rhythm we count on? Turns out it might just be an illusion. A single, powerful storm could throw the entire system into complete chaos.
I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this is a real, high-stakes question that scientists are grappling with. We all tend to think of the sun as this constant, reliable engine in the sky. But what if it's actually way more fragile, way more unpredictable than we ever thought?
And that, right there, is the bombshell finding from this new study. What they found is that a single, incredibly powerful storm on the sun, they call it a rogue active region, has the potential to completely halt the solar cycle, just stop it in its tracks. And that would trigger something called a grand minimum, which is basically a decades-long solar nap. Okay, so to really get why this is such a game changer, we need to back up a little. Let's talk about the sun's basic heartbeat, that famous 11-year cycle, and why trying to predict it is, well, it's just maddeningly difficult for scientists. Right, so this visual here really shows you how irregular that heartbeat can be. If you look at that third panel down, the one marked with a C, you'll see what I mean. The up and down axis is just a measure of how active the sun is, and the side to side is time. See that solid line? There's a big, strong peak, and then the very next one is just tiny. It's dramatically weaker. This is pretty much exactly what just happened with our sun's last cycle, cycle 24. It was way, way weaker than anybody expected, and it left the experts scratching their heads. So how do scientists even begin to predict these things? Well, for decades, the best tool in their toolbox has been to look at the sun's polar magnetic fields. You can think of it like planting a garden. The magnetic field at the poles, at the very end of one cycle, is kind of like the seed for the next one. So a really strong polar field usually means you're going to get a strong cycle next. But how does the sun even build that seed in the first place? Well, that process has a name, the solar dynamo. And it's this amazing self-sustaining magnetic engine. Let's just break down how it works. All right, and the main characters in this story are these things called bipolar magnetic regions, or BMRs for short. You probably know them better as sunspot groups. Basically, they're these gigantic areas where super intense magnetic fields just burst right through the sun's surface. And these guys, they are the absolute fundamental building blocks for the entire solar cycle. So here's how it all goes down, in 4 basic steps. First, you get these BMRs popping up all over the sun. Then their magnetic fields start to spread out across the surface. Step 3, a really slow, kind of conveyor belt-like current starts dragging all that magnetic material up towards the north and south poles. And finally, all that stuff piles up at the poles, and that's what builds the magnetic seed for the next cycle. This whole thing, by the way, takes years and years. And for the most part, this process just ticks along pretty predictably. It's all driven by the average effect of thousands upon thousands of these BMRs. But what happens when one pops up that just doesn't play by the rules? Well, that's when we meet the rogue region. So what makes a BMR go rogue? It really comes down to 3 things. First off, it's just massive. It has an insane amount of magnetic flux, which is just the total magnetic energy it's packing. Second, its tilt is all wrong. It's not lined up like all the other normal sunspots. And third, and this is key, it pops up really close to the sun's equator. That location gives it a huge global reach. And we're not talking about a small adjustment here. The researchers themselves said these rogues can, and I quote, play havoc with the entire system. I mean, that's a great way to put it. They're the wild cards in the deck, and they can completely override that slow, predictable process we were just talking about. Okay, but how on earth do you prove something like this? It's not like you can just fly up there and poke the sun to see what happens. So these scientists did the next best thing. They built a digital twin of our sun, a super sophisticated computer model, and they used it to run an experiment that would be totally impossible in real life. All right, let's bring that graph back up. We're looking at that same panel, panel C, tracking the sun's activity. Now that solid line, that's the computer model acting just like the real sun does, a nice, strong cycle followed by a really wimpy one. Think of this as the before picture, the control group for their experiment. And here is the absolutely mind-blowing part. The scientists went into their simulation, they found the one single rogue region that caused that weak cycle, and they just deleted it, digitally erased it. Now look at the dashed line. That is what would have happened without that one storm. The weak cycle, it's gone. Poof. It's replaced by a cycle that's twice as strong. Let that sink in. One storm changed the sun's entire forecast for the next 20 years.
But wait, it gets even more extreme than that. A rogue region isn't just a dimmer switch, turning the cycle up or down. Depending on exactly what it's like and when it shows up, it can be one of three things: a dynamo killer, a dynamo savior, or a hemispheric unbalancer.
So, let's start with the most dramatic one, the dynamo killer. Look at the top graph here, that black line showing the sun's activity. You see one normal peak, and then it just flatlines. It drops to basically zero. The dynamo just stops. The sun goes quiet for decades. This could very well be the explanation for historical events like the Maunder Minimum, which you might remember happened at the same time as the Little Ice Age in Europe.
But here's the crazy part. The exact opposite can happen too. This is the dynamo savior. On the left side of this graph, you can see the sun's activity is basically fizzling out. It's on the brink of a grand minimum. But then, the simulation throws in a single perfectly timed savior rogue region. And just look at what happens next with those orange and blue lines. It's like a shot of adrenaline for the sun. It completely restarts the engine, and you get strong cycles for years after. And finally, we have the unbalancer. So this bottom chart shows the activity in the sun's northern half in blue and the southern half in red. Now look at the solid lines. One single rogue region shows up and bam! Suddenly the southern hemisphere is way more active than the north, and it stays that way for years. But then when the scientists go in and remove that one troublemaker, you can see that in the dashed lines, look what happens. The two hemispheres snap right back into balance. Incredible.
So the takeaway here is absolutely clear. Single events can have a massive impact. Let's quickly recap the key ingredients that give these rogue storms all this incredible power. Okay, it really all boils down to these three things. First, magnetic flux. This is simple. The bigger the storm, the bigger its magnetic footprint. Second, the tilt angle. The more tilted a region is, the better it is at feeding the polar fields. And third, latitude, or its location. Storms that pop up near the equator have this amazing global reach, and they can mess with both poles at once.
Now, what's so cool is how this all fits together. The scientists figured out they could actually combine all three of those factors, its size, its tilt, and its location, into a single power rating. They called it dynamo efficiency. It's kind of like how a car's speed isn't just about the engine size, it's about how the engine, the transmission, and the aerodynamics all work in sync. And this graph shows that it doesn't matter which knob you turn, size, tilt, or location. If the final power rating is the same, the effect on the sun is exactly the same. It's the whole package that counts. And that really brings us to the most important point of all this. The sun isn't some predictable clockwork metronome. Its behavior isn't just the sum of thousands of average events. No, it's a deeply complex system where the butterfly effect is absolutely real. A single, random, powerful storm can completely change the story for decades. It really makes you think, doesn't it? We've just uncovered this profound, almost shocking sensitivity in our very own star, the one object in the universe we thought we knew best. So it just has to make you ask, if a single storm can do this to our sun, what other tiny, cosmic butterfly effects are out there, shaping the universe in huge ways we haven't even started to discover yet?